3, 2, 1. Apropos of nothing, it's Fragments of Silicon.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. Yeah, so good news. Mac is with us this week.
Hooray!
Yes, after feeling like the living death last week.
Oh God, it was awful.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll tell us all about it. But aside from Mac, we've got the regular crew, like Ogre,
Frog.
Galix,
I resent the implication that I'm regular.
Petty Fan,
I'm quasi-tangible.
and Twilight.
I'm arguably the only normal one here.
You know what? I can't argue with that.
I'm like, anyway, so let's get to the news. Max, since you weren't here last week, why don't we start with you?
Well, as you guys saw on the channel last night, I was giving the middle finger to Dr. Cossack because I have completed all 8 Robot Masters of Mega Man 4.
Yay.
And then I promptly got spanked by the drill robot in the first round of Dr. Cossack's castle.
That's how this goes. Like
It says use the ringman weapon, and I'm like, God, this will be like cake. And I'm like, I got him down to like 1/4 of his energy. Oh, I'm dead. Well, that's okay. I made it to the barrier door, so everything will be just peachy. Why am I at the middle of the level? So that was pretty much my evening last night. We've got the second. We are in production, not pre-production, actual physical production on episode 2 of Starship Moonhawk, the animated series. And I'm pretty excited about that because we're actually going to step up our animation game and introduce 7 minutes of footage that does not exist in comic form. So we're pretty excited about that. So there's a portion of the story that will involve the entire main cast that isn't in the episode. That isn't in the comic version of the episode. So we're going to make the teaser act and the new opening credits because we brought on Morgan Larrabee to replace Krona Yu as Dr. Heather Lopez. I can't even begin to explain what happened there, but it seems like every time we have an absolutely perfect actor for a role, I end up taking the part and getting voice modulated. I mean, we end up recasting. That's another story, by the way. I won't get into, but yeah, so we've got that going on, and what else? Is there any additional gaming news? I so much want to get a Switch so that way I can play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because I just found out that it is not just a sequel, but the flip side of the story of the original game. Yeah, there's some spoilers I won't get into, but it is basically Xenoblade Chronicles the other half.
And it was Earth all along? What?
God damn it, Ogre.
Spoiler alert!
Oh my god. I was wrong.
Well, let's just say Klaus makes another appearance in this game.
Uh-huh.
And leave it. Those of you in the know, and those of you who are not in the know, well, you'll find out.
Santa Claus is in this?
Yes.
Different Klaus. The architect, basically. But yeah, so pretty neat stuff. But I it's like I'm trying to get art commissions going so that way I can actually afford to buy a Switch and actually, pay my bills and my phone.
Wait, hold on. You want to pay bills? What madness is this?
I know, right? So, yep, I'll cut it short so that way everybody gets their usual amount of time. I don't want to I don't want to take over the whole show, but yeah, those are my 3 big things right now.
Indeed. All right, Ogre, why don't you go?
Well, thanks to Petty and his suggestions, I have invested into a power line network adapter, which is basically an Ethernet, just it goes through the power lines. And it is working perfectly so far.
Those are usually pretty stable.
Yeah, it depends how old your wiring is. Like,
right.
We'll go into this in mind, but I probably wouldn't be able to use a power line adapter. We'll put it at that.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it'd probably be a bad idea.
It's
just be playing
fire.
Clocking Heads is burning down the house and going like, well, that feels appropriate.
Buddy found out a minor fire.
But anyway, yeah, that's working out perfectly fine. Also takes me off the Wi-Fi, so I'm not sucking that all up. And I could tell it went perfectly fine because we beat the train in the first day of the reset. Took the whole fucking 2 hours, but we did it. Fucking 1% wipes.
That's the story of our group, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, we started recording again at Naka's. They're moved in. They're settled for now. They're still unpacking stuff because that's what moving gets you, is unpacking stuff for a month.
A month is very, very optimistic.
Yeah, I was gonna say a couple months, but they have internet. They got it Monday, which they were desperately needing because I stopped by the other day and I could have sworn Barry was gonna have those kind of like meth addict addiction withdrawal moments where she just scratches her neck and goes like, "I need it bad, man."
Yo, can I go home with you? I need some internets, man.
I need the internet. So yeah, we're recording again. Probably not going to see a video tonight. May see a Lost Vikings tomorrow. We're going to finish up Lost Vikings tomorrow. We're actually almost done with the game. Let's see. So we got other stuff to work on here soon, which should be fun.
Not.
Well, he's also got to get back to his single-player stuff. And to compound Mac's thing, just to make it more funny, is this little limerick I came up. Guess what, bitches? Ogre's got a Switch. Damn, didn't work out as well. But yeah, now I have a Nintendo Switch.
That's nothing like a limerick.
You see Golix's eyes start twitching.
There once was a lady from Venus. Wait.
But yeah, I have a Nintendo Switch now.
Hooray!
And of course, the first game I got for it. I try to take it out here dramatically so if anybody can see it. Dragon Quest Builders.
You know we can't see that, right?
I know. That's why I said it.
That's like me saying my name has air quotes around it, and then making air quotes with my finger while on the radio.
Indeed.
But yep, now I got me a Switch.
One day I'll have one.
And it is quite fun. I spent, oh my god, almost all of Monday playing Dragon Quest Builders.
Don't worry, guys. I've got all
at,
manner of.
I woke up around 9 or so. Started playing about half hour later, and then next thing I know, it was like 10:30, and I was like, "Oh my god, when did this happen?"
I was just gonna say I have about 5 different kinds of skin lotion for Ogre to rub it in with on you.
I know, that's what made it funnier. I actually, when you said that, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna hate my news." Yep, that's why I'm also hoping to see something from Dragon Quest XI because I want a goddamn Switch version too. I'm buying all 3 versions. I don't even have a PS4, and I'm buying that version.
I'm not sure what that says.
I I want Dragon Quest to do well, all right? It's a lot better than the Tales Up series and sling it at Mac more.
And
Really?
I sprint to the bunker before the nuke
Good.
goes off.
Good thing we're recording this so I can share that with Namco next time they're on the show.
That's next week.
Oh, yay.
Oh boy.
I need to delete a recording.
Well, it's important to remember that we need to start earlier for them because he doesn't want to take the train.
Ogre will be like, yeah, and I really love the Tales series, and I'll be playing it back, and he goes, yeah, not to rub it in with Mac, but I hate the Tales series.
Hey, I like the Dragon Ball series, and they're doing good with that, so...
Hey, doubly amusing when we had Square Enix on yesterday.
I know, but I
Oh.
kind of wanted to keep it a surprise with everything today. I've actually had it for most of the past 3 days or so.
Right. So I guess the Dragon Quest Builder spell got to you.
Well, it's kind of a late birthday present for me, so...
Got you.
But, yeah, that's pretty much it for my news.
All right. Petty Fant, you're up.
Oh boy. So apparently
Fire?
my house is trying to fucking burn itself down.
Now, not the whole house, just the surge protector.
Just the
The thing that's
electrical.
supposed to protect you. Yeah, the thing that's supposed to protect you against electrical fire.
Yeah, like for the past few days in that room where we had that surge protector and it smelled kind of funny. It's like, oh, the cat must have rubbed up against a space heater and there's a little bit of their hair stuck in it or something. Nope. Fucking surge protector melted. The shelving it or the cabinetry it was attached to is a little charred. So yeah, that was fun.
I feel like it did its job if it overheated and took the whole thing.
Well, no, the lucky thing is we didn't skimp out on that surge protector, and it's one of the ones with the plastic is also a fire retardant. If it was one of those cheapo ones, I probably wouldn't have a house right now.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, I'm pretty sure he didn't have fun finding it out himself, so...
Yeah. Yeah, just that realization that if we would have got the cheaper fire extinguisher, we'd probably be homeless at best. Aside from that, I got the rest of my information in to hopefully deal with the stuff about disability, which is going to be fun. Not looking forward to that, but life goes on. And aside from that, not much is going on. Just kind of living and hoping my house doesn't burn itself down, apparently.
All right, Galix.
I'm still trying to figure out limericks. Damn it.
Oh, I thought the snow had consumed you.
Well, the snow is just there hasn't been much accumulation yet, but it's supposed to snow like tonight and like maybe up to between 8 inches and 1.5 feet overnight. And then into the tomorrow, so and then apparently there's a couple more coming up, so I'm not looking forward to that. My work's already closed for tomorrow, and I was really hoping to go out tomorrow after work to get to a second pre-release event for the trading card game I play, but I'm not even certain if they'll be open, and if they are, it's reasonably unlikely that I'll be able to go. But if I can't, then at least presuming I still have internet, which hasn't been too bad lately, then it'll be nice if I can maybe cover the Nintendo Direct thing at the time instead of like later like I usually do. So yeah, that's I've been really tired this week and I don't know why.
Iron helps you play.
Yeah, I've picked up there's a Splatoon 2 Splatfest this weekend, which I'll be doing, and there's a bunch of games I'm trying not to spend too much money on, especially since Kirby comes out in 2 weeks, and I want that.
Oh,
Or
right,
a
Kirby
week
is
now.
coming.
But yeah, a bunch of stuff that looks good, and still need to find time to play the game for this week, which is a rather long visual novel, so
Indeed.
that's pretty much it. Sorry, I'm kind of out of it.
Noted. All right, Twilight, you're up.
Well, yesterday at work, I thought I had lost my keys to my car. As it turned out, I hadn't quite. To explain that, basically Monday I got the new rain jacket from my cousin in Seattle in the mail, and wore the jacket to work yesterday.
It was in the other pocket.
Not quite. Yeah, when I discovered I lost my keys during the beginning of our 15-minute break. Well, my 15-minute break. It turns out that somebody has another jacket, the same brand, same color, pattern, everything.
Ah.
Yeah, we bring our jackets on the same coat rack, and I had mistaken somebody else's jacket for mine, and because I had taken I had a granola bar that I brought in with me as well for break, so I don't have to buy anything from work. And I was going to get the granola bar, and it was in the same pocket as my keys, and yeah, got mixed up with somebody else's, and I still don't know who it belongs to because it's still right in the same spot as when I left yesterday evening. So I'm assuming somebody left it behind. Anyway, besides that, I went and seen Black Panther on Saturday. Fairly enjoyable movie. And been playing the visual novel that we're going to be talking about tonight, and that's about it for me.
All right, I guess it's my go. Well, not much in the way of like news this week. I mean, it's actually been fairly cold down here. Like the last vestiges of winter for this area. You know, cold enough to turn on the heater. You know, but I don't have to deal with snow. So, let's see. Outside of that, yeah, just not much happened this week for me. We have some show announcements, but that can wait until at the bottom. You know, when we end everything. So, with all that in mind, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And this week, joining us once again is John Pickett of MangaGamer.
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
Yay!
Yes, always good to have you. Right, so we're in a bit of a conundrum here. This is a thing that just happened, I don't know, an hour, maybe, it just happened like very recently. So the game we're talking about, A Kiss for the Petals, Maidens of Michael, isn't available on Steam anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
And-
it's more accurate to say at time of recording. It should be up.
Yeah.
Yeah, at time of
re-up.
recording. Is that I think this development's been barely an hour ago, and we're already looking into it to try and figure out what's going on.
And yeah, so the insight into that is limited at best.
Yeah, we don't have a ton
Yeah.
of information because it happened so soon.
And
Yeah.
and the resolution's kind of it's kind of above what John covers. So
Well, yeah, it's we don't have any information yet, so there's not. All I can really say is that we're looking into resolving it, and whatever we have to do to resolve it, we'll find a way, I'm sure. So
indeed,
everyone
So-
listening will probably still be able to play the game, and even if I'm sure it's going to come back to Steam, but in worst case scenario, the game is still available on our website, MangaGamer.com. Everyone can still get their copy there and enjoy the game there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So before we dig into this particular title, we have to zoom out and cover the larger A Kiss for the Petals franchise, because this is quite the franchise.
And that actually matters for this game too, because it brings back all the couples from the previous Dojin works.
Right. This is one of like a few gathering titles. That and Snow White's Night has like multiple couples in it. But,
yeah.
Yeah. So for the uninitiated, A Kiss for the Petals is at least one of the quintessential Yuri visual novel titles.
Yeah, it was originally started as a series of Dojin games, and like through their popularity and through how well they performed and how well they sold, the Dojin Circle was actually able to go professional, and they opened up their sort of professional studio, Yurin, and that's the studio name that they created this game, Maidens of Michael, under. And so that's why it brings together all the couples, and it also introduces a new couple, which we sort of introduced already by releasing Remembering How We Met.
Right. And I'll also note, this is just the main branch of the franchise. There are like two branches there's the main, what they call the main branch, and then there's the new generation games, and then there's all the and then there's some side story stuff.
Yeah, New Generations is available on our site as well. We were pretty happy to be able to bring that over too.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so so how did you first get involved with the Kiss for the Petals franchise here?
It's an interesting story, because we were, I believe, if I remember right, we were approached by one of the groups that were working on the fan translations for the original series. And so after they approached us, we went to the studio, and the studio was actually sort of already knew of them, even if they knew of them to an extent. And there had been I think there had actually been like some mentions in radio casts or one of those side things before. So it was actually, especially when we were able to tell them like we were going to be working with the people that had originally translated and worked on the Dojin titles, they were pretty excited to work with us and work with them and be able to release these games in an official capacity. And our relations with them has been pretty smooth since then. It's usually more of just arranging schedules and timelines than anything else.
Makes sense. And how did you pick the particular visual novels you've released? Because out of the main series, we got 16 titles.
Yeah. So obviously the series is well known for most people, but since we're doing an official release, we needed to think about, okay, what about these people who might what about new fans who might not necessarily know about the series because they aren't too familiar with the fan translation scene and the extra sort of hassles that have to go with that. So that sort of logic and reasoning was part of why we decided to start with the title Remembering How We Met, because even though that particular title was released after Maidens of Michael, it's a prequel to Maidens of Michael, and it tells the story of how the new couple that's in Maidens of Michael comes together and becomes a couple. And so we thought so of the official title, of the official professional titles that the studio has developed, we felt that that would be probably the best introduction to the series for people who have never played any kind of A Kiss for the Petals games before. And then from there, we wanted to continue with the A Kiss for the Petals series, and so again, we're trying to think about these people that are new to the series, new to the genre, and that was part of why we chose to do New Generations first, was because that is, even though New Generations is, like you said, a game where all the couples come together, in New Generations, every couple in New Generations is brand new. You don't have to have played any of the Dojin games or any of the previous Kiss for the Petals series to become familiar with and enjoy the characters that were introduced in that particular release in the series. And so now that we've introduced people to the A Kiss for the Petals series and given them a taste for, like, okay, this is what the sort of shorter one couples games are like, this is what the larger A Kiss for the Petals series is like. Now that we've done that introduction, we felt it was time to go back and work on this title, Maidens of Michael, that actually brings the old Dojin games together and lets the old fans that have known about A Kiss for the Petals and perhaps played the other games before enjoy this title where they're all come together, since this has not been released in English before.
Well, how many of the older Dojin titles got fan translated?
I don't know the exact number because I'm not sure how many there are in total, but I believe most of them were. I know for a fact that at least every couple in Maidens of Michael, their particular game was fan translated.
Like, it's like, well, looking at Wikipedia, apparently Maidens of Michael is game 11 in the series. I don't know how accurate that is, but like, yeah, it's like I can see why you kind of maneuvered around that.
Yeah,
because that is that is a lot of releases.
right. And most of those releases are also, like I said, Dojin titles before the studio was a professional company. So that adds sort of its own challenges if we were to ever try and do those.
Can you elaborate on that? Like,
it's just because with when you're releasing a Dojin title, understand I don't know the specifics of how much the studio has done this, but a lot of Dojin releases are not considered commercial releases. And so if there's any sort of, like, if you look around online, there's a lot of things like fonts or sounds or things like that that are usually free to use as long as it's not a commercial release. And so a lot of Dojin companies and I'm speaking in a general terms here, will utilize those sort of assets, and if they do use those assets, that's usually fine for them. But then when it becomes a commercial release, that becomes not fine. So if we were to do any of the Dojin series in Maidens of Michael, we would have to work with the studio and look at each game to determine if any of that was done.
I see. Like, yeah, that sounds like a bit of a mountain of a hurdle.
Yeah.
Considered. I mean, well, was Maidens of Michael like their first release as a professional company?
Yes.
But on the other side of the coin, the ones that came after it would be fair play.
Yeah. And we'll definitely probably be looking at those as we continue working with the series.
Definitely, because, well, we haven't really gotten into it. The one that follow, like number 12, Lovers of the Altair, or however you pronounce that, is the direct
Altair? Yeah.
That's the direct sequel to Maidens of Michael. Once again, this is according to Wikipedia. It's got the plot synopsis here and mentions, after the best couples events and all that stuff. But getting into Maidens of Michael itself, what is the conceit of this particular chapter in this series?
So the idea for the concept of the chapter for Maidens of Michael is that all these students of St. Michael's Academy, they come together and they vote on who they think are the best couples of the school, and the people that are sort of elected by that vote become sort of the volunteers on the council for the event committee. And
is this an all-girls school, or is it just a coincidence?
This is an all-girls school.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, it's an all-girls school, and you're gonna be surprised when you hear this. It's a Catholic girls' school.
Not that surprised. That is a pretty common thing.
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah. Like, a Catholic girls' school is one of the most common settings in Yuri.
But yeah, so the people that are elected best couple are become part of the event committee, and it's their job to plan out the school's various events, like the Christmas event, the Valentine's Day event. And so that's sort of where a lot of the drama and the interaction between the different couples happens, is they're trying to plan, like, what would be good things to do for Christmas or for Valentine's Day to make things exciting for the school and help all the girls of the school enjoy these romantic events.
Indeed. And this is this a choose your own adventure style kind of visual novel, or is it purely character or narrative driven visual novel?
I would say it's definitely more character driven. The couples in A Kiss for the Petals are very much set couples. None of the couples ever really betray each other, and they're usually pretty set. Like, they have their partner, and that is who they stick with. So
Right.
It's not like you're going to see, even though the couples are interacting with each other, it's not like you're really going to see the couples getting in bed with each other.
Boo.
Yeah. They sort of stick to their partner.
Well, I mean, on that subject, it's worth noting that this series did start out as an adult's visual novel.
Yes, and New Generations and Maidens of Michael both feature adult content as well. Obviously, that's not on the Steam version of those titles, but you can get that on our website.
So I suppose the question that beckons is, what was trimmed for the Steam release?
The sex scenes between the couples. The various couples each have a lot of different scenes of their own in Maidens of Michael, so you get to see sort of an expanded story for each couple from the previous Kiss for the Petals games. And of course, part of that extended story includes them celebrating their romance.
Woohoo!
The peanut gallery. Like,
No need to make this truly lascivious. I'm just.
You should have been here for our mutiny episode. Like, and just wait until we get onto the game that John's been working on. Oh, for the past couple of times we've had him on. Oh,
boy.
Yeah, probably still working on that for another couple of months.
I basically said I wasn't going to lead with this, but our company is going to foray with a linear visual novel. So there's no branching storylines; it just goes straight through the comic storylines. So it's kind of fun.
Mhm.
like anyway.
Yeah.
So so getting back to these particular scenes, have they been removed entirely from the Steam release, or is there any particular important elements that are in them?
Like again, the Kiss for the Pedal series is still very much enjoyable, even without them. It's the Kiss for the Pedal series has always been very character focused, very much focused on celebrating the cute, like the happiness and the emotional connection between the couples within it. And so you still get a lot of that even through like the normal scenes of them interacting with one another. And the adult scenes sort of just more enhance that. Yeah, because
I-
there's a lot of people will talk about how a lot of the adult scenes in a Kiss for the Pedal series are still very vanilla for girl on girl, and that's sort of a distinct choice by the developers. They wanted to create a series of Yuri games that doesn't have to rely on things like toys or magic elements to give someone body parts girls don't have in order for them to, enjoy a proper relationship between two girls. And so there's a lot of, like in the adult scenes, there's a lot of focus on that idea of them enjoying each other's bodies as they are and enjoying the intimacy between the couples. And so the adult scenes definitely, like I said, the adult scenes enhance those aspects of the relationships and the character development, but you can still get a lot of the relationships and the character development just through the scenes of them living their lives together. And that's still, and even those scenes are also still a core part of the series and of Maidens of Michael as well.
That's about what I expected. The entire visual novel has a very warm and fuzzy feeling aesthetic to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
It's wholesome, for porn.
But
It really is.
it's got a plot, and stuff actually happens that isn't
I
even
would-
sex related.
I wouldn't say it has a plot. Like this is much more about its characters.
Yeah, I'd say
That-
it's kind of similar more to like slice of life stories
Mhm.
than like some epic world conquering thing. Yeah, if you want epic world conquering, we have Funbag Fantasy coming.
Mm.
Like, yeah, and yeah, it's Funbag Fantasy Side Boob Story.
Yes, that is releasing at the end of this month. It is the sequel to the original, where it's now the ruler is dealing with all the troubles of like once you're king, holding the throne is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when your queen is a succubus and several nations are still rather staunch in their religion
I
And
can
don't-
always be.
and don't want to accept this country where sex is good.
Like, that. So is this pure visual novel, or is there like a strategy game in here as well?
The original Funbag Fantasy had a lot of choices that would help determine the plot and the routing. Funbag Fantasy Side Boob Story continues that theme where a lot of the choices will determine like how you resolve some of the situations with the different nations and their plots against you. And so you might end at a different point based on your choices, and you might end with some of the different heroines based on those choices. but it's not something like Total War. You're not out leading armies or anything like that.
Gotcha. Like,
Yeah, if you're looking for more gameplay, I think since the last time we spoke, back in January, we did release the Spirit Master of Returnia, and that's an actual adult RPG where you delve into dungeons and fight monsters and have a bunch of heroines that are completely customizable and a ton of adult scenes with the heroines and the monsters and you.
yeah, I'm looking at screenshots right now. Yeah, this is definitely a thing that we could not show. Oh no. No, no. No.
We like having our Twitch account, okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's like I see tentacles, and the tentacles are doing what you think they are doing.
Oh god. I would say I need an adult, but there are far too many in this call.
Define adult.
Someone over the age of 21.
I'm like, I think that's everyone here, including yourself.
Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed.
It's like here's you, and there's the joke.
That was my counter joke.
We shut him up. We win.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, this definitely has visual novel-esque scenes in it, but it's a 3D dungeon RPG.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how does this all work?
With the 3D dungeon RPG?
Mm-hmm.
It works like you would expect. You face the visual novel scenes are sort of where the story plot advances, and then you end up at certain points. You go into the dungeon to like explore the dungeon, try and defeat the monsters and the bosses, acquire the different like equipment and loot and artifacts that you can use to customize your heroines and give them a boost so that they can fight more monsters and beat more monsters. And ultimately, you're trying to sort of get to the bottom of the dungeon and beat the final boss and save the world from the demon realm.
That sounds pretty standard dungeon crawler fare. Just with tentacles, like more tentacles than usual. Like, oh, and
that can be a quote they're gonna put on the side of the box.
Sure, why not? And we also got Fallen Mankina in the City of Ruins.
Yes.
Like,
that's a third-party title we released. It's an original English game that was developed and that we've recently started carrying.
And this looks like a JRPG of sorts.
Yeah, that's how they've designed it. It's very much sort of JRPG. It also has adult scenes in it and a couple stats related to that.
Like, once again, I can. You do provide such graphic screenshots. I'm like, geez, like this one I'm looking at. I wonder if I can even describe it. We'll be safe. But yeah, like I can see the guy's member inside, the genitalia. Fun times.
You're so clinical, Adam.
Sometimes I have to be.
It's okay. You can say he's got his junk in her trunk on Twitch.
No. Fine. Like,
it's a I know what he's talking about. It's a cross section that's showing his junk in her trunk.
Yeah, like you actually see it inside, like an X.
It's called X-ray vision.
Yeah. The last visual novel we covered.
So you can really see the money shot.
Yeah, that is literal.
Well then,
like I said, the last game visual novel we covered had that. Oh, and there's also the title you've been working on that I can never remember on, like the maggots.
Maggot baits, yeah.
Maggot bait. Like, Yeah. So how's development going on that particular title?
I'm still working on that. I'm a good part of the way through the first main route in it. But here lately, I sort of been sidetracked because I've been doing a lot of the preparation for the Kickstarter that we're launching next Tuesday, the 13th.
Nice segue.
Yeah, the Kickstarter that we're working on, Koropokoro, the Kickstarter page is up right now so that we can get feedback from fans and viewers and sort of improve the page before it goes live next week. We already made a couple of changes in response to things people have brought up and suggested. But
And
yeah, no, go ahead.
What has been the feedback? Or rather, what did you change in response to that?
Kind of surprisingly, we got a lot of feedback asking for it to be an adult game. So now we're trying to look at what we can do there. We also had people asking about dual language release for the game, and so we took a look at what we'd be able to do. And with the base stretch goal, that's not going to be possible. But sort of our first stretch goal is upgrading the engine so that we can support Mac and Linux through. We're going to use the Unity engine if we meet that stretch goal. And if we get to that point, making it a dual language release isn't going to be too difficult. So in response to feedback, we decided to add that as another aspect of the first stretch goal.
And what are the other stretch goals?
So the first stretch goal we have is the multi-platform support, and then the next stretch goal that we really want to hit is getting full voice acting for the game. We're currently looking at and approaching several famous Japanese voice actresses to play the roles of the three main heroines, and we really want to hit that stretch goal so we can get their voices recorded and added to the game and bring that extra life to the little fairies, the Koropokoro. Once we have voice acting, the next two stretch goals expand upon the story. So right now, the story of Koropokoro focuses on the main heroine, Ashirera, and throughout the story she is supported by her two best friends, Chirta and Haruante. And so with the first stretch goal after voice acting, we're going to delve into Chirta a bit more with sort of a bonus story that's going to be set after the main story of Koropokoro and focus on her and her past and her goals and what she's trying to get out of life now that she has left her village and moved to the human world. And after we meet the stretch goal for her story, the next stretch goal is adding a story for Haruante, and likewise that will delve into her past and also more about the Koropokoro society and what it actually means about the fact that these three have left their village, breaking the rules that say the Koropokoro can't leave in order to come to the human world. And after we get the story expansions, the next idea we have for stretch goals is to implement live 2D animation. So for those not necessarily familiar with what that means, it's the type of sprite animation that you see in games like Nekopara, where the sprites are very fluid, constantly moving, and they're not quite 3D models, but they almost are, and they move very fluidly like a 3D model, but with almost more detail and more fluidity because it's still only a sprite and not really moving in a 3D world.
What is your what is your funding goal here?
base goal that we're looking for is 30,000. That will be enough to see the game to completion, pay for all the art, the rewards, and everything, all of that. The first stretch goal, the multi-language support, is at 40,000. Voice acting moves up to 80,000, and then the stretch goals go on from there.
And is this going to be a 30-day campaign?
We are looking at actually running it as a 21-day campaign.
1 day.
Yeah, so it'll be live for 3 weeks.
Is there any particular reason why you're only doing 3 weeks?
Because we don't feel like the extra time actually is going to help that much. If you look at a lot of Kickstarters, traditionally most of the funding for any Kickstarter comes in the first week and the last week, and all the time in between is sort of this trough where very little happens. And we want to make sure the Kickstarter succeeds, and we want to make sure that the people coming and joining us for the Kickstarter share that sense of urgency and don't just put it off and forget about it.
I can see your point there. Especially since, I've definitely seen that in other Kickstarter projects. And how long do you think it would take to convert Kororangpur in Love to this new engine, get it up to snuff?
Converting the engine, I don't want to give any firm estimates because we'll have to double check to be sure, but probably it'll probably add a couple months, I want to say. At the base goal level, we plan to have everything ready for release by September. But theoretically, we should still be able to, even with the first stretch goals, we should be able to have it out by the end of this year at the latest, I would imagine. If we get to the point where we're able to do the live 2D animation, that might extend our dates out a little further.
Hey, sounds good. Well, as much as I'd love to keep this conversation going, we are running low on time and kind of have to conclude things here. I'll see if there are any last questions from my colleagues.
I'm good.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the Kickstarter goes.
Same
Yeah,
here.
We're very excited too, yeah.
All right, then. All right, once again, John, it was lovely having you on the program, and do the usual post-interview invite back on the show, say May 2nd.
Sure.
All right. So the game is A Kiss for the Petals, Maidens of Michael. Not currently on Steam, but it is available on MangaGamer for $34.99, or no, $34.95.
Yeah, and it'll likely be available on Steam again once we get things sorted out.
We'll try to have an update on that next week. See how things play out, but that is the situation as it is. And Petty Fan, play us to the next segment. Alright, so this week's topic of discussion is the Nintendo Switch, 1 year later. Like, what are you doing?
I don't know.
The man is defective as usual.
404 error does not compute.
Anyway, the title is pretty self-explanatory. March 3rd passed, and that was the official 1 year anniversary of the Nintendo Switch. And, by pretty much any metric, the Nintendo Switch had an amazing year.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it's funny what happens when you actually put out a decent number of good games in the first year of your new system.
Well, it's not just that. It's also you actually have an idea of how to market your system, and you can convey that to the masses. That also helps, because when we were going over this on Sunday, writers' room, we talked about the Wii U, and the abject failure that was the Wii U, and one of the biggest problems was Nintendo did not know how to market that thing for shit.
Well, they did such an amazing job with the original Wii, and then the Wii U was just like, well, I mean, just the way I just said it there, Wii U.
They basically marketed it as the controller, which made people think that the controller might just go with the original Wii.
Right. And it's also so. Who here can actually answer the question? What does the Wii U mean? What did Nintendo mean by Wii U?
I believe it.
Sorry.
I believe it had a greater emphasis on single player. Believe it or not, the Wii for You was the general idea that with the larger screen controller, you could take it to another room and do other stuff on a more private basis, which was kind of counterintuitive to their strategy before.
Actually, kind of the opposite. It was we, as in, and you, like another player joining because it kind of gets forgotten, but Nintendo at one point had multiplayer ambitions for the Wii U, for the gamepad stuff. Like they talked about how.
And the few games that tried to do this, it works fairly well, but it's not something that was ever really gone into in much depth, and it's not the easiest playstyle to market.
Well, I mean, aside from Hyrule Warriors, I can't really cite any games where I got super excited about playing with my ex.
Well, Hyrule Warriors is multiplayer, but it's symmetrical multiplayer. The thing that the Wii U was supposed to try to do was asymmetrical multiplayer.
Right. It's like they got a little too cute with the name. So when they should have gone with the branding Wii 2, TOO.
Yeah,
that
something like that.
Something that would have indicated that, this was a sequel console and not an upgrade. Because people thought it was an upgrade to the original Wii. That goes in with the whole, hey, the controller is the system thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the design of the box didn't exactly help dissuade people from thinking that, considering how similar the two machines looked.
Yeah. Basically, it can come down to this. Like, the Wii U is an abject lesson in how not to market anything, honestly. Like,
right.
I can't think of a single, just in terms of like sales or marketing or advertising like that, where Nintendo really succeeded with that console. And that really did play into the Switch. Because, you go back and you look at the original reveal trailer for the thing, and Nintendo made sure their marketing was on point. Their name was on point. Everything was clear, concise, got the points.
Launch titles.
Yes.
Actually good ones.
Well, now, like New Super Mario Brothers U had its moments.
I'm sorry. I nearly bored myself to death thinking about it.
Yeah, unless you've done that final challenge, you can't pull that shit on me, so.
I do get where he's coming from, since, the new Super Mario Brothers games are pretty sterile art-wise, but in terms of actual design, they're pretty solid.
Oh, I found the game quite enjoyable. I just didn't feel it to be enough of a departure from New Super Mario Brothers to warrant a whole new game.
It clearly was still the same idea as the other New Super Mario Brothers games, just, made a little bit more detailed and in 3D.
I mean, if we're being honest here, the Wii U launch blows the Nintendo Switch out of the water. I mean, the Nintendo Wii U had like 20, 25 games at launch. Maybe they weren't, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but, there was a lot of them versus like the 6 games that launched with the Nintendo Switch. It's
right. The problem is that the Wii U had a big launch thing and then like very little for over a year.
Right. This is another. Thing. This is another thing that Nintendo has remedied. they ran into some big software shortages, and it hurt them. In fact, one could say that that's one of the bigger reasons why the Wii U failed, is because they just didn't have anything to offer there, especially in that first year.
Yeah, there were
and they
several
also
months
got-
that at best we got like a virtual console release.
They also got very sideways with third-party developers. It was weird that they put so much emphasis on virtual console and indie developers, and then the AAA providers were just like, yeah, if you don't like our hardware, suck it.
Yeah, that's actually something that they considered because, Bethesda comes to mind because, I think that was John.
It was just our guest, yes.
Anyway, yeah, Bethesda mentioned why they weren't doing Wii U games is because Nintendo never included them in the discussion, especially in the early days, and
Right.
by the time that that conversation happened, it was way too late.
Right.
Whereas, obviously Bethesda's actually probably the biggest third-party supporter of the Western variety. I mean, they not only do they have the Skyrim, they brought Doom. Nobody was expecting, the 2016 Doom to arrive on the Switch. They got Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus coming. So
Right.
they got some real support here.
Right.
And yeah, Nintendo's been firing on all cylinders, I'd say, because going back to the first party lineup, Nintendo's been developing this chain. They've been averaging about a title a month, going all the way back to launch. I mean, it's not 1-to-1. Sometimes they missed a month, or you had Mario and Rabbids, which is technically a third-party title, but it's an exclusive one, so it still counts. Mario and Rabbids isn't going to appear on any other platform.
Yeah, and that, it's like the previous generation. They rushed it to market. They didn't significantly upgrade the hardware. I mean, it was huge for them compared to the original Wii, but it was still kind of junk.
Yeah,
and it felt cobbled together.
The PowerPC architecture it was using was god awful to develop for.
Right, and then they had a lack of dev units. Whereas with the Switch, it seems like Nintendo got their heads dislodged from their rectums, and was like, okay, let's actually plan this system. I mean, it's like they could have just shit canned the Wii U really early, but what they did was they kind of stuck it out, left it alive for a while, and actually went through a real development cycle to make the Switch, and that made all the damn difference.
It did. Plus they partnered with people who know how to design hardware.
Yeah, because this is NVIDIA's system on a chip is the big thing that's running it, and not PowerPC, which is an architecture that hasn't been used for shit in almost a decade.
Right, and this is kind of a return to form for Nintendo, is the fact that this system actually not only has the hardware under the hood, but it has an almost artistic aesthetic to it.
It's also a fresh artistic aesthetic because Nintendo's been using that Apple plastic, sterile white stuff for about a decade now.
Right.
Yeah, before the Switch. And people were actually kind of getting tired of that. Back in the mid-2000s, that was sleek and chic. In the here and now, that's kind of seen as baby toy stuff.
Right. And the other thing is I feel that Nintendo really put some effort into it. They kind of brought the fun back to the games, whereas the Wii U titles were largely gimmicks and holdovers. Felt like they were like more advanced ports of games that should have come out on the Wii. In many cases,
some of them. I think the sports series and the party series and a lot of those things particularly were not so great.
Bayonetta 2 was amazing, but to me, it was almost unplayable because if you're trying to use that god-awful clunky screen controller to play a action title that is as intense as anything that Platinum would put out, you're going to be sad.
I kind of liked that controller, but I concede that
couldn't-
it was a little large and heavy
I
sometimes.
couldn't even get through the opening cutscene, which is interactive.
Although I do usually lean the controller on something, so.
It's
Yeah.
like you have an unskippable opening sequence that ends in a boss battle that you can't win very easily. It would have been better if you just used a Wiimote and nunchuck with it, and that's not the default.
I think you can, I think you can use a Pro controller, but it's not the default. The default controller was that T-tray. They call it controller.
Yeah, I mean,
Speaking of controllers, Nintendo went with a very odd choice this time around with the Joy-Cons.
I think it's a pretty good combination of like the Wiimotes with the nunchuck, and you're almost always going to have two of them.
Right.
And then also they still made the Pro controller for people. I mean, the separate Joy-Cons I'm not a huge fan of, but at least the idea works better than the Wiimotes, sort of, sometimes.
Right. Though I can definitely say that they haven't been using the Joy-Cons to their full potential. People kind of forgot that it had an IR camera.
Yeah, like
No, those things have a lot of technology in them, which is why they're so damn expensive.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of one of the reasons why Labo's coming out.
Yeah, Labo is going to be, at the very least, an actual justification of all the tech in that in those things. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Labo was the original intent, but they really couldn't unveil that because they really needed to flush the gimmick out of their system.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, they didn't want to put the R&D behind Labo if the Switch is going to flop like the Wii U did.
not only that, but the Switch is Nintendo's least gimmicky console since probably the GameCube.
Yeah.
Now it still
I don't know
has.
if I'd say it's less gimmicky, but the gimmicks are practical.
That's probably a better way of framing it because
I mean, it's certainly not something you just plug into the TV and leave there.
Because Nintendo Labo here is coming out in year 2, whereas in just like the previous Wii U generation, this would be something that they would have been targeting for launch.
Yeah.
Nintendo's mindset, has been very broad. They've said that they want to broaden the audience of the Nintendo Switch, which is
And
fine.
they have done a much better job of attracting like actual mainstream games on this than the Wii U ever really got.
Yeah, it's just, and I don't think anyone can deny it, that Nintendo got fixated on the gimmick. Going back to that controller, that was a thing nobody asked for and didn't really provide anything new. If you get down to it, the whole second screen gaming was done much better with Nintendo's own DS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Nintendo's focus for the past year has been on what we call core titles. Zelda. We got like a lot of the heavy hitters in year 1 as well. We got Zelda, although that was kind of happenstance.
Yeah, the Zelda was originally a Wii U game that just got... I mean, they didn't just port it, like they kind of did with Twilight Princess, to the extent that the GameCube version is debatably better in some ways.
Right.
But it started as a Wii U project that they just trans whatever to the Wii. Transferred was the word I was looking for.
Ported, transposed.
Transmogrified.
Yes.
Transmogrified isn't the right word because that means change.
I know.
I know. It's like
I was going Calvin and Hobbes.
fair enough. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, but they had some ports. They had Mario Kart 8 there, but that turned out to be a really good idea. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of the highest selling titles on the Switch.
Well, it was also one of the highest selling games in the Wii U.
Right. It's
I think the Switch is in a somewhat unique position regarding ports, in that it is uniquely acceptable to a unique degree for it to have ports of Wii U games, because the Wii U had a good chunk of really good games on them that just never got an audience because the console never did.
Well, let me let you in on a little secret. The Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, they got cross-generational ports when they started out as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people complained about those too. But I'm like, this is a thing that actually always happens between generations.
Yeah. Because, spoiler alert,
think
making games is expensive.
Yeah, I just think this case is more justified than most.
I get it, because the Wii U only sold like 13.5 million units.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't much of an audience to piss off.
Compared to what's the PS4 sitting at?
Oh, geez.
100 something?
Not that high, but if we want to talk about market share, so I just saw a chart that pretends that Nintendo's probably going to overtake Microsoft this year in terms of market share.
I wouldn't doubt it. Because the one thing that I've been harping on Microsoft's entire generation, there's no reason to buy an Xbox specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't do much of anything that the PC can't
Switch, you have Nintendo's core IP, and PS4, you get most of the great JRPGs.
Well, and you also get Sony stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Sony does put out a lot of games. It's just Sony doesn't have as resident IP as Nintendo.
Yeah.
But yeah, Microsoft has the least. Especially since they got the Xbox Anywhere initiative, where you don't even have to have an Xbox to play Xbox games anymore.
Yeah, like the only franchise that hasn't leapt, I guess, back to PC is Halo. Everything else has gotten a PC release.
There are still some old Xbox One games that haven't made the leap.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking at you, Rare Replay.
Still better.
Yes,
can't blame him.
I guess also Sunset Overdrive and maybe the Kinect stuff, but mostly Rare Replay.
Well, seeing how the Kinect is dead and buried, it's not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah, but it was so.
It was a thing that existed.
That's debatable.
Hey, it was one of the world's greatest advances in potential surveillance equipment.
Actually, the Kinect had some really good uses in the medical field. But that's way beyond the scope of what we're talking about.
Hey, Star Wars dance off, baby.
Anyway,
I still can't believe
cut some rug with Lando Calrissian since he got cut out of the new trilogy.
Don't make me pull up that GIF, please. God, don't.
Can't believe they didn't use the "I'm Solo Han Solo" song for the Han Solo movie trailer. Everyone was thinking it. They might as well have done it.
Well, somebody did that.
I know. My comment on that video was, this was what everyone was going to be thinking anyway. They should have just done it.
Anyway, getting back to the conversation about the Switch.
We can't do that.
Sorry.
Well, it's my job to get things back on track, so.
I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, Nintendo had a lot of heavy hitters. Not just the ports, not just, the big two, but, they brought out Splatoon 2. They brought out a new franchise in ARMS. They had Xenoblade Chronicles 2 actually release on time.
Woo! That's a very first for Tetsuya Takahashi.
It is.
And possibly a very last.
I don't know. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X wasn't delayed that long. It just wasn't good. It was
Even
the
beyond good and
Xenosaga.
bad, it wasn't what people were looking for in a Xenoblade game.
It was the Xenosaga 2 of this franchise.
Pretty much.
Get the fuck out.
Now.
Well, it is the one where they made everything weirdly realistic looking.
Let's go on fetch quests forever and focus on. I don't know what the fuck we're focusing on. There's a lot to look at. Plot. Jesus Christ! Why the hell would you want that? I don't know. I mean, after all of those power ballads with Shulk in the previous game, I kind of expected coherency, but that was too much to ask for in this
First
sequel.
game did actually have a lot of fetch quests. It's just they made them so easy they barely register as that.
They were completely unnecessary. You could beat the whole game in 60 hours. If you
Right.
played it for 250 hours like I did, it was because you were being oddly completionist.
Right. Well, and
But-
they made all of the busy work quests really easy.
Right. It's somewhat debatable.
Okay,
but,
really user friendly, I should say.
oh man,
You didn't have to
you didn't.
remember.
Yeah, you didn't try taking down that level 70 Mechanis on the sword, so you can just fuck right off on that one.
All right.
Okay, the battle challenges is different.
Yeah, that was.
I'm not
a
talking
nice-
about the fights. I'm talking about like the actual mechanics of getting, completing, and like getting rewarded for quests.
I mean, it's just that one was super challenging, and it was time sensitive, and you weren't allowed to go back to it.
Right, because you're like right up against a point of no return there.
Well, that and spoiler alert: the sword collapses and you fall down to the ether.
That was the point of no return I was talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And to cap off the fiscal, first year of the Nintendo Switch, they released Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Only an infinitely more playable version.
I'm like, that's. I'm like,
You can pick what controller you want to use this time.
yeah, it's like actually
Yeah.
it seems to be pretty 1-to-1 for the compared to the Wii U version. Like it still runs the same, though I think it has a better. It's got better frame rate because the Switch is more powerful.
Well,
That's-
yeah.
It's just anyone who was expecting 1080p docked, that wasn't happening. It's all 720. But here's the thing about the Bayonetta games: frame rate is so much more important than
Yeah.
fidelity.
And one of the things the
Mhm.
Switch is really good at, actually, apparently, is scaling the fidelity based on like what's needed at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The high dynamic range is what
Mhm.
they call it, and that's a thing that's all over the Switch.
Yeah, that's one thing the NVIDIA Tegra chip does really, really well.
This is kind of important because we had a game release that didn't heed what that was and is really fucking terrible, and that's Payday 2. Payday 2 is, by the way, technically speaking, a last gen game, although it's PlayStation, it's got a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version, and so on and so forth. But this is a game that stays at 900p no matter what, and performance takes a huge hit.
Yeah. Keep in mind the Switch screen is only 720.
I'm talking docked. But,
Yeah,
but
yeah, but like trying to run at 900p when it's in handheld mode, that's just dumb, guys.
yeah, it's like it's not the best reinterpretation of a let's say current gen game on the system. It's like Doom has its issues. Like I personally wouldn't buy Doom because it cut the frame rate down to 30, but there are some people who swear by that.
Yeah,
It's-
it depends
Well, if you got
on
an astigmatism.
yeah. Like as long as it's a stable 30, it's not as bad.
Right.
But I haven't looked much into it. Like if they did it to 30 for stability, that's fine. but if it can barely even handle 30, then that's a problem.
No, I think it was stability.
Yeah.
You know, no. And yeah. Now, as far as continued third-party support, so here's where things get dicey. You're just not going to see a lot of AAA titles on the system, no matter how successful, because there is a power imbalance. You know, the Switch is just not as powerful as a PlayStation 4. You know, and I know that people will bemoan that, but they kind of forget what the Switch is. The Switch isn't another PlayStation 4. It is a hybrid console, the likes of we've never fucking seen.
Yeah.
And it beats the pants off the PlayStation Vita.
Oh God.
Hell,
yeah.
it beats the pants off of last gen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like it's more powerful than the Wii U, Xbox 360, or PlayStation 3. So
Yeah.
last gen ports, won't be a problem from a power perspective. There might be other issues.
I've heard tell it's close to par with the Xbox One when it was system gimped by the Kinect.
I could see that. Like, it's about as powerful as a system you're going to get off of a Tegra chip and that kind of form factor. Now, so yeah, if you're ever going to expect, the full Assassin's Creed Origins experience on the Nintendo Switch, no. So, it's like, insert any big tier game. You're just not going to see that.
Yeah, it's like, especially the big sandbox games, it doesn't have enough RAM to do it.
Yeah, it's like that. That is not to say that we've seen things like NBA 2K18, WWE 2K18, FIFA Soccer 2018. They have made specific versions for the Nintendo Switch, but I don't see that happening too often.
Well, it's like the sports game will be fine, but the problem with this generation going to be the large sandboxes is something that the Switch can't do.
Yeah, it's like, but what the Nintendo Switch also can do is, games as service or live services, whatever the hell we're calling it this week. In fact, Nintendo has put out a couple of games in that mold. It's just, they're not marketed that way. Splatoon 2 and ARMS.
Well, and the interesting thing about those is that those are games that, like, it's not monetized as that. You know?
Yeah. They have the same ideas. It's just, Nintendo's not nickel and diming here.
Yeah. Like, does ARMS even have any paid DLC?
They couldn't have after the first Splatoon, but if another company had made it, Splatoon would have, like, oh, you can download new weapons if you pay a little bit.
Yeah, all those weapon packs would have been paid.
Or if you want new gear, you can maybe get what you want in a loot box.
If you want super sea snails, pay us X number of dollars.
Yeah. Indeed. Anyway, so we should be wrapping up this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's talking slower, and also Doodles, you're killing your daddy. Oh, get off my chest.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on the first year of the Nintendo Switch.
Hope it's not the last year.
Well,
I'm glad it's doing. I'm glad it's doing well.
Yep. I wish I had it for the last year.
I
got mine like a month or so in. I haven't had as much time to play it as I wanted to, but
the only thing I'm interested to see in the Switch is usually stuff with, like, mobile components like, Tegra-based tablets and whatnot, they start to go downhill performance-wise rapidly after the first year and a half. So I do wonder
every
where
time
the
somebody mentions-
launch runs of the Switches are going to be at around that time.
Every time somebody brings up the fact that it has a Tegra processor, I think about the Surface RT and the Ouya. and then I think to myself, man, those systems really sucked. The Switch is doing it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just have some longevity concerns, both with the battery and the processor components, because those are made for mainly quote unquote disposable electronics, something that you'd be replacing after 2 years.
I'm just super excited that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 actually has real faces.
And not plastered on stickers.
Painted on mouth flaps that just open and close. It was a little disturbing to watch the cutscenes in that game. Oh man.
All right, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. The week ahead. So tomorrow we have a special broadcast happening at 5 o'clock Eastern because Nintendo announced a Nintendo Direct, and we decided we'd live cover that. Who exactly will be here is kind of floating about.
Because I have to work.
Yeah. Ogre has to record.
I normally have to work. My work is canceled, but there might be other reasons.
So
work is canceled on account of disdain.
Indeed. Anyway, coming up this Sunday, we have 2 reviews. First up, we have, the game we featured here today. We still have it. Hopefully, whatever issue hit A Kiss for the Petals, Maidens of Michaels, will be resolved by Sunday. But we've also got a game called Bolt Riley, a reggae musical adventure, Chapter 1.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's an adventure game centered around reggae. And yeah, that's about it. It's really, really short, as the Chapter 1 would imply. More on that on Sunday. Coming up next week. We do not have a Tuesday interview happening next week. And on Wednesday, March 14th, we'll be welcoming back Dimitri from Bandai Namco at a special starting time, 7 p.m. Eastern, because when we do it at the 9:30, he gets late, and so Mac's probably not going to be here for this one, unfortunately, but
I have to work.
yeah, especially since we're going to be talking about Ni no Kuni 2.
Ah!
I am excited.
Oh, yeah. So on that note, I wish you good gaming.
And of course, I'm Matt Paladin.